if you just touch one person. Like if you just sit down and have a conversation with one person who gets habitually passed by, nobody looks them in the eye, nobody talks to them. I'm still talking about it. It had a profound effect on me. And when I was living up in Whitehorse, I used to go and go to the animal shelter and walk the dogs because they didn't have anybody to walk them and to love them. And I couldn't get a dog at that point, but I love dogs. And I'm still talking about it, right? Welcome to the world of energy, where science meets spirit. Ancient wisdom merges with cutting-edge knowledge, and the possibilities for a healthier, happier you are endless. Hi, everybody. Lauren and Blaine here. Welcome back to another edition of Energy Works. And really excited to talk about this topic today. It's very near and dear to my heart. And it's about giving back. It's about giving back to your community, to the world. So I want to just share a little story. Some of you know this because you've participated in this, and I thank you already. A couple years ago now, it was, just 2 years ago now, coming up on this Thanksgiving. So this podcast is coming out sort of during the holiday season, and we're filming it just a little bit before Thanksgiving. So just about 2 years ago, I was visiting my neighbor who lives across the street, and I've known him for many, many years. And he's had some health issues and gone through those, and then some have lingered, and he's really good friends with my husband. And he literally lives across the street. So we visit him on occasion and, out walking Louie, and we'll just stop by and see how he's doing and say hello. And we stopped by and asked how he was doing and said hello. And he said he's kind of not doing so well. And he sort of did his hand mezzo like that. And I was like, oh, okay. And then he and my husband started talking about the stuff that they talk about, sports and skiing and all the people that they know. And I came back to him and I said, well, can you tell me a little bit more? What do you mean by that? What do you mean you're not, what does that mezzo mean? That okay. And he went on to explain, because I asked that question, because I dug a little bit, because I wasn't just like, okay, well, that's great. Now they're talking about skiing and then we're going to go home and make dinner. I asked him that question because I heard something and I felt something. And so I asked him, what do you mean? What's going on? And he shared with us that things were really tough and financially, and he was barely making ends meet. And I said, are you eating enough? And he said, sometimes. And I just cratered inside when I heard this beautiful soul who I'd known for so long and is the sweetest person. If you've met him, you know. And so I went home and I just thought about this, like, what could I do? Like, yes, I could bring him some food. So I did. And I brought him some dinner. And I asked him, I said, hey, Gary, would you ever consider letting me start a GoFundMe campaign? He didn't even know what that was. He just turned 70, maybe 7, something like that. So, super not up on the tech stuff, and even what he does tech, he's not like, scrolling social media and all that kind of thing. So he just didn't really know what it was, and I explained it to him, and he said, do you think anybody would donate? And I said, well, let's see. Let's just see. So I went home that night and I wrote up a story and I brought it to him the next day to edit and review, and he had a couple edits and I put it up, and we were blown away by the response from the community. Most people hadn't known how bad things were for him. And everyone has had an experience with Gary that is phenomenal and amazing and loving and kind and generous and open and fun, because that is who he is. It's not like sometimes people say, oh, this guy's a really great guy. He's got a lot of friends. But like Gary just goes beyond that. I don't really know how to explain enough about how amazing he is as a human and how many people's lives he's touched. and in like really deep ways, like deep wisdom, deep Socratean wisdom. Like he really, my husband has shared some life-saving wisdom that he got from Gary because he used to work with him when he was a young kid in high school and right after high school out of college. And he was working with Gary on the mountain. And so I was really just blown away by the support of the community. And then we had this big party and everybody showed up and we did a raffle and we raised a lot of money. We actually raised enough money to have a well installed. So Gary lives totally off grid, but he didn't even have water. And so he would go into town and haul water. But because of his surgeries and his health issues, he doesn't move very well, has really difficulty walking and getting around. And yet you'd see him kind of walking with his walker and going and hauling water. So we got water. We got a bunch of construction people to come and help build a ramp and help just kind of support and show a lot of love. Like the party was absolutely amazing. People, it was like a reunion tour. It was just so incredible. So many people were out there and it was really beautiful. And we had a really wonderful time. And then the party was over. And so here's where the podcast begins, right? Because the party was over and we did this thing and we raised this money and Gary's still there. He lives across the street and he lives off grid and in a little cabin that he built. And he still struggles financially because he can't go back to work and he is living off of his Social Security and life is still difficult and challenging. And so it really made me understand it's like we have this impulse to give and we want to give. And the whole coming together of the community to support him was such a beautiful, potent thing. And then we all go back to our lives, which are full and busy, and we have our own challenges and our own needs that need to get met. And we can't take care of everything and everybody in the world. And so what do we do? And I don't have an answer for that, for the world, right? I only have an answer for myself for that. But it really, I think it's so important that we take a look around us at our community and that we do ask the difficult questions. Because if I had never asked that question to Gary, I never would have known the circumstances that he was in. And then, 2 years on now, I need to ask that question again of myself. How can I support? How many people can I support? Who can I support? What can I do in the world to give back? And so I thought that we could have a conversation about that and share what we do and how it affects us both emotionally and spiritually, and how we share that out in our communities and in our teachings. Because, of course, giving is kind of baked into every spiritual tradition that there is, and every organized religion as well has, some of them have kind of rules around giving. And there are traditions of that you are compelled to give certain amounts and things like that. And certainly in a lot of spiritual traditions, there is a rich tradition of coming together and supporting those in greater need than ourselves. So I'll stop there and turn it to you, Blaine, and see what you have thoughts on this, and we'll kind of get into hopefully a rich conversation about it.
Yeah, Lauren, thank you for sharing that story about Gary. I remember when all of this happened and we were promoting the GoFundMe link, and you raised a lot of money. I feel like that you kind of sped over that part. I mean, it was a very significant amount of, it was... not to take a 5-element tangent, but Lauren is primary wood. We're all everything, but Lauren is primary wood. And that was such an excellent display of wood in right action, right? Like Lauren's like, there's a problem here. What right action can I take? And wasting no time, just getting it all done really fast and raising a ton of money.
Wait, can I jump
really
in? Can I interrupt you on that? Because I appreciate what you're saying there, and I kind of very specifically chose not to say how much money we had raised because in my dream world of that solution, we would have been one of those GoFundMe campaigns that raised like millions of dollars and Gary never had to worry or struggle again. And that's not what happened. And so we did raise a chunk of money, but he still has to live. And it wasn't enough money to make it that he could live comfortably and easily forever. And so it did really come back to me to think of like, well, not that it wasn't of value, but how do we sustain? How do we sustain? Because one big bump is not sustenance.
Thank you. Yeah. Right. And a lot is subjective, obviously. I was impressed. I thought it was an impressive amount of money for how quickly you riled, like kind of brought the troops together and made something happen. And it is a testament to Wood, right? I mean, it's just like get or done energy, like something needs to happen. I'm going to be the one to do it. I'm doing it right now. Right? I'm not doing it tomorrow. Like I'm doing it right now. And which I do think feeds into this theme a little bit of taking action when you see that you can. And I think for me, that hasn't been my strongest point. And recently, so we at Energy Medicine Yoga, we have an online platform where we teach yoga classes online. We teach 3 classes a week, and there's a little community baked into that. And sometimes it's for sale and sometimes it's not. And so if you want to know when it's for sale, make sure that you're on our website. I just don't want to leave a loose string there. Go to the website, energymedicineyoga.net. And if you scroll to the bottom, you can sign up for our newsletter, and then you'll see what's up with us, but also know when our community opens. But we do these community questions, and one of them recently was something along the lines of, what have you done recently that you're most proud of, or what are you proud of that other people don't necessarily see in you, or it was something like that. And so I went in to answer the question, and I thought about it. So I was like, what am I going to say? And what I wrote was that when I feel the urge to be generous, I just do it without overthinking it or without stopping myself. And I haven't always been that way. I grew up with a single mom. I have a bit of a poor girl mentality. And so my tendency, more often than I'd like to admit, is a little more to hoard than to give. I mean, not in like, my house, but just like, in money in the bank or, something like that. I've made a lot of my own money, blah, 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 blah. It is a character defect that I have that I try to work on. And so I made a promise to myself maybe about a year ago, if I feel the urge, the homeless person outside the grocery store, if I feel the urge to like give them money, just do it. And not like overthink it or stop myself or anything like that, but to just allow myself to feel those urges. And it never feels bad. Right? It never feels bad when you did that. I'm getting ready to tell a story about my teacher in India. Something he says, I feel like there needs to be Energy Works bingo cards. When is Lauren or Blaine going to say to put your hand on your forehead and in your sternal notch? When is Blaine going to bring up her teacher in India? You can have a card.
I love it.
But one of the things he says often is, if you want something, give all you have of that away. Whatever you want, give all of it away. Whatever you have, give it away, give it away, give it away. He's always saying, give away, give away, give away, give away. And if you want love, give away love. If you want friends, go introduce your friends to other people so that they can have more friends, right? Like whatever you have, give away. And I've been really trying to embody that more than is in my wiring. So to answer your question, Lauren, that's really what was coming to mind for me as you were talking about this story.
I love that. I was just about to go into give it away now, because when I answered that question, you went like high spiritual. I just went like, I am actually a great, I riff rap on my own all the time. I'm not going to do it here. I'm not ever going to do it for all of you, but I do that little rap stuff to myself about everything. Like it's part of that wiring that I sing all the time. And often that singing devolves into rapping. And that was my thing that I don't share with anybody that I'm proud of. Because when I hear some of my raps, I'm like, dang, girl, that's good. That's Eminem level, But to your point about giving things away, that is something else that I do frequently and try to do more and more and more of. So I have this kind of rule with myself. If I get something new, I need to give something away. So that's usually a rule for clothing or shoes, right? If I get, every once in a while, and I'm not a real shopper. I'm not a real acquisitive person, but I do need clothes. And so when I get new clothes, I'll give clothes away, and I bring them. Some of them are very lovely clothes, very nice clothes, and I don't ever bring them to the secondhand, the place where consignment stores where I'll make some money off of it. I just bring them to the Seroptimist so that they can make the money off it, even if they're like, whatever, high-end clothes or whatever that I somehow acquired. So I do that giving away thing a lot, but I also have started to think about that idea in a different way because I recognize how blessed I am, how gifted I am. And I don't mean gifted and I have a lot of talents, although I do. I'll never deny that. I do have a lot of talents, but I mean gifted by the universe in terms of the financial security that I have and the abundance that I have. And so when I look around and see things that I feel like I'm lacking, like my house is really small and I'd really like to live in a bigger house. And that would require a massive amount of financial security that I actually don't have at that level. But then I think, do I really need that? Do I need another sweater? Do I need another yoga pants? Do I need another pair of clogs? Sometimes the answer is yes, and I will not deny that to myself. But sometimes the answer is, well, if you look behind that pile of sweaters, you have another pile of sweaters right there. So even though this sweater that you just saw in the shop is so cute, do you actually need that? No, I don't. So do you have the money to buy that? Yes, I do. Well, could you do something else with that money that might have a bigger effect in the world than you having a new sweater? Yes, I can. And so I've started to sort of really try to put my money where my ethical concern of the world is. And that is that there are a lot of people that are in greater need than I am. And that I do have means beyond what my needs are. And I'll say this as well, because I feel like I heard something different from you. For me, it's really easy to give money. I work hard for it, and it's easy to give it away. Like, I go to a restaurant, I pay for a meal, I'm just giving them money for something that's going to be disappeared really quickly. It's just easy. I put it in that, like, it's just easy to give money away. What's harder is to give away time. And so there's another place of giving back. Can you give back something that's hard for you to give? I can write a check and it's no skin off my teeth. It's nothing. It doesn't have any effect in my life. It's not going to negatively affect me in any way. But am I going to volunteer somewhere? Am I going to mentor somebody? These are the things that really show me where it is that I need to grow more. And I did volunteer quite a bit when I was younger. And for years, I've been so wrapped up in my business and in caretaking for different people or areas of my life that I have been able to say to myself, well, I don't have the time for that, or I don't have a structured enough schedule to put something in on any regularity. And I've managed to sort of talk myself out of doing what I know is of great value and how it also feeds back to me in a greater way, because we know that giving gives you as much as it helps whoever it is that you're giving to. So I wonder if you have any of those kind of, I know you do a lot of coaching, but I don't know like how much mentoring or, do you do volunteer work? And what do you think about that? And just curious your perspective always. I'm always curious your perspective.
Yeah, yeah. It is much easier for me to give away my time than my money. I will.
Interesting.
I think we're definitely opposite in that respect. So I'm an animal activist. And so that is where working with farmed animal sanctuaries and humane societies, I run a group in Boulder called Boulder Vegan Lady Boss. And we actually have recently worked on getting signatures for a ballot measure. So I would just say in the animal, I feel like the animals, well, they are voiceless. They can't speak for themselves. And so I do use my voice and my time and my energy to protect them because they cannot do it for themselves. And so that is my lane. And it is, I've thought about this a lot because I've received, criticism isn't the word, but I think sometimes people are, I don't know, pick a fight is strong language, but maybe sometimes want to like pick around my edges a little bit and be like, okay, Blaine, that's great. You do so much for animals, but what are you doing for battered women? And I'm like, nothing. Why don't you tell me what you're doing for battered women? Because like, I think having a lane, right? Because we can also, and I said battered women because I do have a friend who does a lot with battered women, but, Blaine, what are you doing for people? What are you doing, for that sort of thing? And I'm like, we're children or, pick your thing. Like, that's not my lane. And I think so I do I'm boundary girl. And so I do really think that instead of feeling guilty, like, well, I'm doing this, but I'm not doing this, and I'm not doing this, and I'm not doing this, like, because none of us can do all of the things. But like having a thing that you feel really, really strongly about and going deep in that thing and doing making the most impact that you think you possibly can in that thing feels better to me, at least, because like that's my vibration. Like my vibration has helped the animals. It's been like that since I was a child. Like I vibrate at the highest level when I am serving planet Earth, and animals in that way. But for somebody else, if it is, the million other things it could be, instead of trying to like shallowly do a bunch of things and then beat yourself up for what you're not doing, because we all have a limited capacity, going really deep on the one or two things that really like feed your soul the most. And so that's my thing.
I love that. That's so wise. Because I do feel like there's this idea that there's so much need out there that it can just feel overwhelming. And then you just don't do anything but just get depressed because the world is like, going to hell in a handbasket. And, the reason to give isn't so that you feel good, but that is one of the side effects of giving is that you do feel really good. And so I think that's really wise advice to find something that fits either your schedule, the need that you see around you, or like you're saying, something, perhaps all of those as well as something that you're deeply passionate about. I remember when I lived in New York City, I used to volunteer at this homeless shelter, and I'd go once a week and cook a meal and serve a meal. And it was so amazing to me because I got to talk with all of these homeless people that I never would have had a conversation with, and to serve them. So we elevated their level of dignity so that they were being served. And there was a room where you could get clothes, and there was an area where you could get, fix things. And it was just this incredible feeling that, like that idea, if you just touch one person, like if you just sit down and have a conversation with one person who gets habitually passed by, nobody looks them in the eye, nobody talks to them. I'm still talking about it. It had a profound effect on me. And when I was living up in Whitehorse, I used to go and go to the animal shelter and walk the dogs because they didn't have anybody to walk them and to love them. And I couldn't get a dog at that point, but I love dogs. And I'm still talking about it, right? Because those dogs helped me as much as I helped those dogs. And so there's all of these ways that we can contribute and really get fed ourselves by helping those that are in need. And, it's really interesting to me that you said that, you have a harder time giving money, but easier time giving time. I have a harder time giving time, but easier time giving money. Either way, we're both feeling like we want to give and we want to give back because we have gotten so much. And I think it's a really important and valuable thing to talk about because there's this idea, there can be this idea that we have to just take care of ourselves. We got to get what's ours. And that's the most important thing. And we got to take care of our own, which is like me and my family. And that's it. And that is a really limiting perspective. And it leads to a kind of insular sense that starts to infect, I'm going to use that word, your worldview. That you're all alone here. And if you don't take care of yourself, then you're going to be, cast out into the wild. And if instead we all thought that we were okay and we had enough to share, then the whole world would be a remarkably different place.
Yes, it would.
Right?
Yes, it would. And the research is, I haven't read the research recently, but so I'm going to talk at the higher level because I'm not going to quote any studies or anything, but I think we've all read the research that shows that that's what makes us happy is when we're helping other people. That, when we're trying to get out of a funk or out of depression or out of the dark cloud or whatever it is, like go help somebody else, go be of service, serve, like who can you serve? Be of service. And that is what lifts your heart, raises your vibration, brings you joy, what we're most wired to do, right? Like serve others.
Yeah, 100%. And, I have this thought and I'm going to ask you because you said you used the word hoarding with your money. And I know how hard you have worked in your life, and you've shared with us and our listeners some of the compulsions that you've had to work so hard to get to the level that you are right now and the financial security that you 100% have done for yourself. And I often think about really wealthy people, like, stupid money, right? Mm-hmm. And I just wonder why they don't give more of it away. Because I wonder, like, you can only sleep in one bed at a time. You can only eat one, even if it's the Kobe beef that's like $20,000 a steak, right? You can only eat one of those at a time. And so, how much is enough for you to feel like you're satiated with your wealth, whatever that, whether it's money or, how much is enough that then you want to take the rest and share. And I know that there's built in a fear of like someone's going to take it. But my view of it is if you give some of it away, the person that's desperate that you're afraid is going to take it from you is no longer desperate because now they are actually fed and maybe housed and maybe loved. And so they're not so desperate and angry and something to fear anymore because now they are at your table instead of banging at your door. So I'm just curious because you used that word hoard. How does that sit with you? How do you feel about that? Not that you're that person, but how does that sit with you?
Yeah, no, I think you're right. By hoard, I meant hold on to, if I'm like, given the choice, like in the moment, like my little tendency, right? Like my first kind of tendency is like, I think some of it is that, save it for, the you don't know what's going to happen, have, all of the messaging that we're given. I mean, a lot of it is from like the Great Depression, right? Like we're not that far from the Great Depression and the Great Depression mentality, and you can lose everything overnight and have enough like security, because if that happens again, like you could lose, and there was just like so much. I mean, that's in our lineage. I mean, that's, many of us, like that kind of loss is in the trauma, DNA that has come through, besides all of the, the financial planning and then, all of the, how much you need to have saved for retirement, and, just like all these like messages that we get like showered on us, and then feeling like we don't have enough because there's, commercials, you have to have this much saved, and if you're not, you're in the bottom 20%, and whatever. And so I do think that there's a lot of programming that me and probably a lot of others have. You clearly don't, but that a lot of others have like this. And so, I mean, I think that's my journey. That's why I made this commitment myself, that if I feel the urge to be generous, to do it, to try to feed myself more of the joy of serving people, so it starts to override the programming.
I like that. I like that. Because I think that programming is the fear programming, and it's like whatever, it's a fractal expansion, like whatever, if you have 1 million, well, I need 1,000,005 then I'll be relaxed. And if you have 100 million, you're like, well, I need 1 billion and then I'll be relaxed. If you have 10 billion, you're like, if I just had 20 billion, then I would feel like okay in my, in my world. Right. And it's interesting when you talked about like the depression, we could lose everything in a moment and all that's very yogic, right? Of like, if everything is stripped away from you tomorrow, who are you? Are you the same person with the same values? Or are you only, a product of your house or your bank account or, and so that's fascinating. And of course, there's been many books and movies and, about just that. I think of the, now I'm not going to think of the name of it. It's a film. It just came out a couple years ago. The name is what you call this wrinkle between your eyebrows. It's like it has a name. It's like the cavern of despair or something. Literally, I mean, that is a thing. It's that, I'm not saying it right. So somebody's going to drop in the show notes and we'll figure it.
I have a really big one. I have a big cavern of despair.
Someone's going to drop in the notes what that's called, or I'll look it up after. But that's the name of the movie. And it takes place on this elite yacht where like multimillionaires go, and the yacht gets there's a storm, and then there's, what are the people that go on boats and steal the boats? Pirates come on, and then they're shipwrecked, and it's just this whole crazy story. And at the end of it, or not at the end, but like the bulk of the movie is what happens when you're shipwrecked on this island. And the woman who was the head of housekeeping is the only one who knows how to actually do anything practical, how to get food on this desert island, how to make fire. She's the only one who knows anything. And the multimillionaire is just like totally lost because all that he had was his money. And he didn't, and whatever, intelligence that got him to get that kind of money. And we can talk about if that's intelligent or rigged system. All of that is, part of it. But in any case, it was just so fascinating how when you're stripped of everything, what happens. And at the end of the day, the woman who was the head of housekeeping, she didn't want it to go back to the world as we know it, because in the world as we know it, she's not valued. She is a servant. Mm-hmm. She is to clean up the throw up of the rich people on the boat when they get seasick. And she's not valued as anything beyond that. And in the world of, really, if push comes to shove, she had a way higher status in that world because of her skill set and what she could actually do, who she actually was, as opposed to what she actually owned. I don't know what, we've got really far away from our topic here, but I'm going to try to rope it back towards our topic, which is, it's not really actually so far, because I think about this a lot. I think about, what would happen in the world if we had some kind of event like, a solar flare that like took out all the internets or whatever. And we don't have any of this communication, and then shipping stops and there's no trucks bringing you your food. And then what happens then? And I know that there's preppers and all this, what's going to happen is, who's going to survive are those who come into community and share. That's who's going to survive. If you're super rich and you've got your bunker, at some point the bunker food is going to run out too. And if you don't know how to plant a garden, then that's it. If you don't know how to clean your water through charcoal that you've made in your fire, which I learned studying with Tom Brown Jr., then you're not going to have clean water. Like, the ones who are going to survive are the ones who come together in community. And to flash back from that kind of end of the world crazy thought experiment to right now, today, I still believe that same thing is true. Because if we look at studies, we see that the higher your wealth value goes does not equate with your happiness level at all. There's actually no correlation between your pocketbook and your mental well-being. And those who are the happiest are the ones who live in community, who share, who are open-hearted, who would give you the shirt off of their back if you were cold and in need. They are the ones who are happier. And so really the question is, it's not this binary, but I'll just throw it out there. It's like, do you want to be rich or do you want to be happy? They're not mutually exclusive, but for this thought experiment, it's interesting to just sort of contemplate that. When you're on your deathbed, do you want to say, woohoo, I still got $2 billion in the bank, everybody. I'm dead, right? Like, so what? Or when you're on your deathbed, do you want to say, I've had such a joyful life. I had some sorrows. We all do. But I'm so joyful of how I've lived my life and how I've served and how I've been served. I'm just joyful. And then I'm dead. For me personally, I'd rather be happy and take that into whatever the next incarnation is.
I'm with you.
All right. So we've solved the problem, everybody. So here's the directive. Here's the homework. Go give. Go volunteer somewhere. Give some money. Give some time. Look around your community. Find a place of need. Look at your own skill set and find what you have to offer. It doesn't have to be money. It doesn't have to be time. It could be anything. What is your gift that you have? You could be a great knitter. Knit a sweater for somebody that's in need. Like, there's so many things that you can do. So there's the homework. Find a way to give back to your community. And just because we started this whole thing with this conversation about Gary and the GoFundMe, we're going to put the link for Gary's GoFundMe campaign in the show notes here. My dream still is that this GoFundMe goes viral and that Gary really does get enough financial security so that he can live the way he wants and chooses to live, which is in a little cabin in the woods with friends who drop by, bringing him food or camaraderie and joy. Louie goes with me often, and Louie and Gary have a very sweet and special relationship. And so I offer that. If you're not sure where to begin, you can begin right where we began this podcast by donating some amount of money to my dear friend and neighbor, Gary. And then we'd both love to hear if you drop a comment in the show notes where you put your joy. So where did you go volunteer, or who did you donate to? What organization? We'd love to hear from you. And really the goal of energy medicine yoga is to heal the world one energy at a time. And so if you can contribute your healing to that world, then our mission is well on its way to being realized. So thanks for tuning in, and we can't wait to hear back from you on how this podcast landed with you.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Alrighty, energy fans, that's a wrap on another positively charged episode of Energy Works. Lauren, this is the part where we get to use our energy puns.
It's been electrifying, hasn't it, Blaine? We hope you've enjoyed it as much as we have.
If you're feeling amped up and you want to keep your energy flowing, be sure to hit that subscribe button on your favorite podcast platform.
And we'd love to hear from you, so please take a moment to leave us a review. Your feedback helps us continue to deliver content that resonates, so light up our inbox.
And spark a conversation with your friends to tell them about us. And we'll see you next time on Energy Works.